Hello, everybody. I've been a member of Impact Austin for over 10 years. When I first joined, I thought that everybody was supposed to join a grant review committee. I didn't realize it was even a choice. And so I literally joined in December, and a couple of weeks later showed up at my first GRC, fell in love with grant making, and have been involved deeply with the grants team ever since. So delighted to be here today. If you're a new member, some of the things I'm talking about may not be as relevant to you just because you're thinking, well, what's changing? I didn't know how Impact Austin did grants before. If you're recent or a longer term member, you'll understand that these changes are fairly significant over some of the things that we had done in the past. Anne did say that certainly the pandemic played a role in how we had to reimagine some of our grant making. Starting in the spring, we were mid-grant cycle and had to literally change some things on the fly in order to shift to a virtual format and think about ways to get more money to more partners in the community as quickly as possible, while still honoring our really rigorous grant making processes. But it wasn't just the pandemic. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And so, other forces and thinking around social justice and equity and around just things happening here in the Austin community, gave us pause and really had us rethink what grants should look like in the coming year. So one of the things you'll see is that we're now moving to a balanced spring and fall cycle. We used to have the majority of the grants in the spring, and then we had launched a pilot for our social innovation grant in the fall. We're now going to have 2 grant categories per season, so 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall. We used to have separate grants for programs and capacity building. The capacity we called the Catalyst Grant, and then we had program grants. What we've heard from nonprofits and from members of the community is organizations need both. You can't make programs great without having a strong infrastructure, and you can't just invest in the infrastructure and the capacity without having an effect on the programs that you deliver. So we have decided to blend programs and capacity building into a single application, and the nonprofit can make that choice as to where they want to apply the budget if they earn that grant. So they can decide to go all in on programs, all in on capacity building, or some combination. Another thing we learned through that social innovation grant was the power of collaboratives showing up to work together on a project. That grant actually required that folks come as a collaborative, and we determined that why just reserve that for one part of our grant portfolio? Why not do that everywhere? These partnerships have been really powerful. The organizations are doing more together than they could each do on their own. And so again, nonprofits can choose to show up as a group and divide up the grant proceeds among them towards an initiative, or show up on their own. Another thing we did this spring, and again, the goal was to get the most funds we could into the community as quickly as possible and to more partners, is that we split up our funds and awarded both of our finalists rather than just the one with the most votes. That resonated so strongly with members and with the nonprofits that we've decided to make that a standard for our 2021 grants. So anyone, or either a single organization or collaborative, that basically makes it to the stage or is pitching as a finalist, will become a community partner of Impact Austin. The one with the most votes will get 80% of the grant pool for that focus area, and then the other one will get 20%. And that primary grant will be for the initiative that was proposed. The secondary grant will be unrestricted funds. So considerably more organizations will be touched by Impact Austin, and with greater flexibility. We also learned that because we had so many different grant making categories and focus areas and processes, it was challenging for us to manage as a group of volunteers. It was challenging for nonprofits to figure out, which one am I applying for? What does it look like? So we've actually streamlined our grant process. So we now have a single application. It's much shorter. So instead of a couple of dozen or more questions, we have about a half a dozen, and it's just really basic. Who are you? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? How are you going to measure it? What's the impact? And just how are you showing up? So modified the grant application, have modified corresponding processes to lighten that load. We trust our members and we trust the nonprofits to know what to do and to do it right. So we don't have to do quite so much questioning and monitoring and inspecting. Finally, again, with forces in the world and always with a culture in our organization of humility and community awareness and connection to the community, we realized that we still have a lot of work to do around equity in our grant making processes. And so we've introduced an equity prompt in the application. We're training our members more universally around racism and anti-racism and around equity and bias. And really just starting to infuse that in our processes, again, with the humility that we won't fix this in one grant cycle or in 1 year, but it's part of a journey that Impact Austin members are on. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see this is a summary of all of the grants that we plan to issue in 2021. We've actually already kicked off our Girls Giving Grants program for young women in 8th to 12th grade. So that's underway and will be awarded in the spring. And then you see here, our spring cycle will have the education and community focus areas. And the fall cycle will have health and well-being and the equity grant. And again, all will support either programs or capacity building, single orgs or collaboratives, with the same applications, the same criteria, and the same processes. You can learn a lot more about the details of the grant programs, the calendar, and all of that on our grant making site, and also on the GRC site, where we talk about the experience of being a grant review committee member, what that looks like, and what to expect. So you may be thinking, this sounds amazing, and everyone here seems so excited about being involved in grants. How do I get involved? Just like I did when I first joined, I didn't question it. I just joined a GRC because I thought that's what Impact Austin does. And we encourage all of our members to do that. It's an incredible way to learn about the community, to learn about grant making, to meet other women who have passion and curiosity and incredible skills and expertise to bring to the table. So you're going to be, making friends with these folks and working side by side with them. There's just so many benefits. It's a well-structured process. It's run by volunteers. They're going to train you and tell you everything you need to know. So even if you're thinking, oh, I've never done that before, it's really easy to jump right in. So that's, step number one, especially for new members. Go ahead and join a spring or a fall committee and get that experience. The grants committee is the volunteer team, myself and others who do the work of grant making with Impact Austin. You see a little org chart here that's really simplistic, but these are the different roles on the grants committee. All of us have grown up through grants, some of us, with one GRC under our belt and others with 10 years or more. So again, depending on the role, you could jump right in, or we may say, hey, shadow in that role. And then as you get that experience shadowing a peer, then you can step into that role yourself. But we have folks that work directly with the nonprofits, either during the application cycle or at the other end when they become community partners. We have members who work directly with our grant review committees and lead those teams and train and guide our members through that process. We have folks that do deep dives on the financials. So if you love money or numbers, that's a great place to land. And then we have folks that also help shepherd our finalist process and our technology. So lots and lots of opportunities to come in, and we invite people to shadow virtually every role if they want to learn what goes on there.